So, how's everyone? Cool. I was originally going to start this talk with a story, but of myself. But then I thought, as this talk goes on, I'll be talking about myself more and more and more. So I actually want to hear from you lot. So who has a really exciting story that they'd like to share with someone? Come on, you. Mr. Vanderlook, have you got a very exciting story that you'd like to share with us people?
Oh, Jordan always has good stories.
Go on, Jordan. Tell us something about you, something exciting that's happened in your life.
So, are you kidding me?
Come on, man.
3 months ago, I had my left lung removed.
Whoa.
Beat that.
Wow. Why did you, what?
Yeah, so apparently 15 years ago, one of my cells went rogue and started developing a massive tumor in my chest, and it got to the size of a basketball because I was a really heavy smoker and thought that I was out of breath because of that. And then I went in for a lung x-ray, and the guy was like, you need to go to the hospital. So I went to the hospital, they took the tumor out, and then it had crushed the lung, so we waited for the lung to come back to life, and it didn't, and then they took that out.
Shit, have you got a scar?
I got 2 scars.
Wow. Are
Yeah,
you willing to show them, or?
Sure, yeah, here we go.
Get them out, show them. Validating your story.
No. Yeah.
Whoa. Hang on, can I have a look?
What's that?
I didn't see.
Oh, right, yeah.
Oh, Jesus. Do you tell people it's a shark attack?
No,
it kind of looks like
yeah,
that,
kind of, right?
doesn't it?
Like a mouth on the back, yeah. Is that good enough?
That's good, thank you so much. So we get a bit of an insight. Give him a round of applause, by the way, as well. But we get a bit of an insight into who he is as a person, and you kind of feel a little bit more connected with him now that you know that. So my presentation today, it's down here as well, is the importance of storytelling. And kind of the reason why the reason why I wanted to talk about storytelling, because it has been kind of the basis of our evolutionary success. It's something that's been, stories is how we pass down, morals, how we pass down our teachings to people. And in particular, I really like the word story, because story could be used in so many ways. When people give a lecture, that could be a story. And I kind of like the word story because it kind of still has that kind of naive innocence to it of when you were a child and when you remember hearing a fairy tale from your parents before you went to bed, or you watched a cartoon, or does anybody remember Biff, Chip and Kipper? No? Yes. Yeah, now come on, what a story. Teaching you values and teaching you to read. But so to me it's a very important subject to touch on because it happens every day. We tell stories every day. So click, there we go. Storytelling is the conveying of events in words, sound, and or images, often by improvisation or embellishment. Stories of narratives have been shared in every culture as a means of entertainment, education, culture preservation, and instilling moral values. To be honest, the reason why I included this into this deck is because I just love the way like a dictionary definition's laid out. I love the design, so that's purely the only reason why I wanted to show you visually today. It's just because it kind of is visually pleasing to me. And so, sorry, I'll just compose myself. I've maybe have a bit of tea. The thing is, I'm a nocturnal person. I don't function before 12 o'clock usually, so this is kind of a big thing for me. Thank you. I kind of like where it touches on embellishment as well, like that's a common thing. Like a story should be embellished or improvised, whereas obviously the real truth and honesty in the story I think prevails so much more and resonates with you so much more and connects with you so much more. So I kind of I'm a little bit against the definition in a way. So what is a story? So it is a description, either true or imagined, of a connected series of events. It's a report in a newspaper or in a news broadcast of something that has happened, which is something I'll come back to that definition in particular later on. And thirdly, it's a lie. 2 and 3, I mean, you could say they're one of the same thing. But to me, a story is much more than that. A story is a tool. It's an educational tool. It happens to be one of the oldest tools we have used in the human race to evolve. We couldn't live through this world if it wasn't for stories. We pass down things through generation to generation. So family morals are then instilled. Like I say, it's the reason for our evolutionary success. And stories can shape an individual. They shape cultures. They create religion. And it's what defines and binds humanity as a whole. Consciousness is recognized by meaning. And we are the stories we tell ourselves. I am a story. I tell a story, therefore I exist. Without stories, you don't exist. Without your story, you don't exist. As a person, you do not exist. Everyone has a story. Why do we like stories? I don't know if you know this, but look, you can see Doug. Do you even know that? I didn't even plan that. Yeah, you can see Doug in there. This was actually at the launch of a V&A launch last year at Stolen Space Gallery. These are two really good friends of mine, an artist duo called Circle, Davey and Rabbi. Really good guys, really good artists, you should check them out. Why do we like to hear stories? Like I say, they give meaning to things and experiences. I mean, for example, I've told you that Doug's in this image, and I've given you a little bit more of an insight into Circle as a whole. So they kind of give meaning to this image to you a little bit more. There is still, before when you saw that image, there's that kind of, we do this thing where we like the absence of information sometimes. So when there's nothing there, we can create stories in our head and create scenarios and create a start, a middle, and an end within our head, which is kind of fascinating. But it's really nice to get that legitimacy from, I don't know, someone like myself giving you an explanation into this image and where it kind of started from, and Doug's little cameo role as well. Stories make us feel connected. I always use, as well as spraying bricks, I run a creative agency, and we do a lot of kind of branded content. I know there was a talk, obviously, of like where do we fund these projects? We have two non-for-profit organisations. They're all funded by our agency, and I always like to tell the story of Keanu Reeves and how, before I knew about Keanu Reeves' story, I thought he was wet. I hated Matrix. I hate Point Break. The only film I really liked was Bill and Ted, and let's be fair, he wasn't really playing himself as he has done in other films. But then I found out about his backstory. I found out that he's from the proceedings, from the money he took from Matrix 2 and Matrix 3, he shared between the crew. I also see that he takes public transport every day. He lives in a very, very modest home. He gives millions and millions to charity every year. He takes public, like I say, he takes public transport. And he's had a very hard upbringing. He lost his wife, then when they had a child, and then they lost that child, and he lost his best friend, and he's really had a shit time, to be honest. But he's still really positive, and he still wants to spread that love and that joy to everybody else out there. And then when I heard that, I was like, wow, damn, this guy's cool. This guy has the same mentality as me. And then I felt connected. So now I'm invested in watching his shit films. You know, I mean, they may be bad, but I'm invested in him because I know his backstory, and I feel that a little bit more connected with Keanu Reeves. I feel like I know him a little bit more, which means I want to support him more. So it's telling those stories to help people resonate with yourself. Moving on from that, like, people enjoy having their emotions stimulated as well. It's neuroscience. We enjoy having our emotions tickled. So when you see something that makes you happy, you know, you enjoy smiling, but at the same time, you do enjoy things that make you sad as well, because they make you realize that you're human inside. They give you some sort of ground to base it off. And things happen to us all the time. Everybody has a story to tell, like Jordan's, which brings me back onto you guys. I want to hear one more story from someone. Has anyone else got an interesting story? I mean, to try and top Jordan is going to be pretty difficult. You got a story?
Yeah, I've got a story. Yes, 2.5 weeks ago, I was out for a night, and I was having a good time, and I bumped into some Australian people that were all nice people apart from one that told me all night he'd be buying his drinks for his friends. So to take this card and put it in as a tab, and that I should do it and pretend that I was then going to buy the drinks for his friends. So at the end of the night, I went outside, and I noticed that someone was stealing my bike that I'd locked up outside. So I went up and I hit the guy in the face, right? Because he was stealing my bike with some bike clippers. Swipe.
Plus you're Irish, that's how.
Yeah. But I hit him as hard as I could, and what happened was he laughed at me, essentially, and broke my nose, right? And I've just recovered from that. I then was covered in blood and went back in and found out that I was left with a tab of £250 from this Australian person with a card that was fake. And they didn't believe me that this guy had given me the card, and I was kept there, and the police were called, and I, of course, was covered in blood. I have an Irish accent, which does affect things when you're covered in blood. So I looked, again, like a gypsy. And the police came, and I spent my first night in a cell that I've ever done. And tomorrow, I have to go and see the police and face the charges of fraud by misrepresentation.
Whoa.
Yep, but I've paid the bar tab, and I've paid it off.
Every cloud has a silver lining, because from that story, I get the feeling that you're a good guy, though. I do. I mean, you're out there, you've taken the trust into someone to take their card, take it to the bar. You've gone outside. I can see that you stand your ground, clearly. You're not going to take no shit from no one. I mean, you're Irish.
Never.
So, yeah, I think that's given me a bit more of an insight into you, and I'm smiling now hearing that story. I mean, it's been entertaining for me. But I also feel like a slight connection to you now. I feel like I have something that I can relate to you with, you know, and that's what it's about. It's about being able to relate with other people and resonate with other people through your storytelling. Yeah, sorry, yeah, my bad. Nice shout. Thank you, Peter. By the way, can you give him another round of applause, because he's been really helpful the last few days, getting all these presentations together. And these wouldn't be here if it weren't for him, so. Like I say, because they resonate and make us feel normal, and that's what is important about stories. And funny enough, I was here yesterday, and I listened to the talks, and I got to experience some of the amazing stuff that's downstairs, and especially Jose's stuff with the virtual reality. And that's amazing, because with that, it really hits the nail on the head of that. You get a bit more of an insight into him and the way he thinks and the way his processes are when it comes to creating his art. And just, it feels like a bit of, you've walked into his mind almost, especially with some of those visuals. You definitely feel like you've walked into his mind. But you can also relate to it, because inevitably, we're all going to die. So you all relate with death. So the subject matter that he's talking about, you all relate. But at the same time, you get a real kind of snapshot into who he is as a person. And that's kind of what, like, it's just amazing to me that there's a lot of people that don't, and they're not as outspoken as I think they should be, because you suddenly understand how similar we all are in the ways we think. There's just, I think sometimes there's just different subject matters, but the end goal is always the same. So it's nice to open up, talk with each other, and find those correlations. And another good thing about a good story is, and it goes back to Jose's VR piece again, and also Mace's piece, is that it's engaging. A really good story is engaging. And this doesn't necessarily have to be done by mouth. It could be done by an installation piece like Mace has done downstairs. And how he's kind of changed that space, and that makes you want to, you know, what was your experience through walking through his space? Did you touch the ribbon? And it's amazing that how he's created, I don't know, how many people have walked through there this weekend? So what, 300, 400, 500 people? So there's 500 different stories, different experiences of walking through Mace's piece, and I think that's amazing that an artist could kind of like, not manipulate, but kind of push that along. And yeah, obviously, we like to hear stories because we're passing on values. We wouldn't be here. I wouldn't know how to tie my shoes if it wasn't for storytelling. I wouldn't know what clothes to wear maybe, or You know, I wouldn't know the sky was blue, or, you know, that there's animals out there, or anything. Like, these things are all our knowledge is passed down through storytelling. And I don't, like I said to you before, I don't really like using the word like teaching or lecturing, or I like the word storytelling because it does just have that innocence, and you go into it open-minded. Oh, my bad. Forgot my side. Thank you. Yeah, I've got to click your side. Time. Oh, sorry, okay. I'll keep it moving, sorry. But it does, it opens up our minds, I think, by calling them stories and saying storytelling is naive, it is innocent, and you do just, I think it even opens up the minds of sort of even the closed-minded people, if we treat it that way. So what makes a good story? A story is, someone always put it to me, a story is always like working out a music track or a beat to a track. So your narrative is going to have 8 beats in this, or something like that. So there's always kind of, in my eyes, there's always a start, a middle, and an end. And everybody has their own story, and we're all still here now, so the end there hasn't been an end to that story yet. So there is still that sort of structure throughout. This is from, I got this from Shekhar Kapoor, who is a Bollywood director, but he also directed Elizabeth. Does anybody remember that, with Cate Blanchett? Yeah, amazing film. Only man to remember that film. But he said there's a few things that we kind of look for when we're looking at stories. And we kind of look for plot level, so what is the premise of a story? We look on it at a psychological level, so how does this make me feel? We look at it at a political level, so is this relevant to any current social issues, or can I relate it to any current social issues, an issue within myself? And then there's mythology. You know, we look for the fantasy in things. We look for the impossible, the things that can't happen. That's what we kind of look for in a story sometimes, because that's kind of entertaining. This also makes us dream. A good story is its uniqueness. A really good example of this is Van Gogh. And he was an amazing painter for years, and he's done an incredible amount of pieces. But I mean, apart from the sunflower piece, most Joe Blogs remembers the fact that he chopped off his ear. So does anybody actually know why he chopped off his ear, or the story of how he chopped off his ear? Huh? Nope. Anyone else? No. No, he lived in Arles, in Camargue, near Camargue National Park, and he lived with 3 other artists. And it was Paul Gauguin who he had a row with. And because he actually did suffer from a mental illness, Van Gogh. And what it was is they had a row one evening, and Paul left. He walked out, left the yellow house that they lived in Arles, and went somewhere else. And Van Gogh actually blamed himself for this. He blamed himself so much that he cut his ear off to punish himself. So, I mean, but that's the story that everybody remembers, the fact that he cut off his ear, but no one's willing to sort of delve in, and because that's kind of what hooks you. It's that uniqueness that always sticks with you. It's the same as, you must have heard the joke of, guy walks into a bar, there's an old guy sitting down there, and guy goes up to him and goes, "Oh, how you doing?" And he's, "Oh, all right. I'm McGregor, you know. I built that building over there, but no one ever says, 'Oh, you're McGregor, the master builder.'" And he's like, "You see," you know, and he goes through it, he's like, "You see that statue over there?" It's like, "I built that statue with my bare hands, but no one ever calls me McGregor, the stonemason." And he goes, "But you fuck a goat once." And everybody remembers. Thought about that now. I mentioned it before, it's that absence in information as well, which kind of draws us in. That's why it's become very popular now. I mean, usually if I wasn't standing on top of this stage, I'd probably be at home now binging on Orange is the New Black and probably doing the whole series. It's because that each episode has you in that thought of like, hang on a minute, there's things missing from this. There's things missing from my puzzle. I need to put together the dots and make a coherent story so that I can finish this and end this. And that's what kind of keeps you going for more. And lastly, the most important thing is a great storyteller. You need a great storyteller. Going back to sort of how we've evolved as well, it was always the priest or the monarch who was who was the storyteller. And it really, even in tribes, it was people that, it was those who were the storytellers that would be treated with the respect and then gained the power within that tribe. So they have a responsibility. Their responsibility to be true to themselves, to keep their integrity, but at the same time know that they're passing on invaluable values and teachings. Strong themes run well through a story. That also goes with art. I mean, Mesa mentioned Connor Harrington yesterday. I really quite like the fact that he has this theme of sort of, does anybody know Connor's work? I should have really maybe showed an image, but should really look him up. But it's like these people of power, and they're kind of, and he pours acetane on them, and then they kind of like drip away, and it's like, looks like decay. And that's kind of like, he likes, what his theme is the fall of colonialism, and that resonates all the way through his pieces. There's also D-Face as well, who's based in London. A lot of his stuff, his theme is death and decay. And then you got sort of Shep over in LA as well, who you probably all know, and his is all sort of based around peace and love. So there's always a kind of a correlating theme within a good story, and a good storyteller always finds their theme. It's about trust. There was a financial market analysis. Susan, I've got her name down actually. I actually haven't. Oh no, this is the Shane Snow stats actually. So Shane Snow, has anybody heard of Shane Snow? He runs an agency called Contently. And what he did a poll between who would you trust more, J.K. Rowling or the Queen? And it was a landslide to J.K. Rowling. And the reason it being is that because, but this was based in the US as well, she's probably a contributing factor to that. But because people have read her books, they kind of feel like they have an understanding of that person. So even with fiction, you can kind of have an understanding. The way someone writes, the way someone portrays characters in the book, you can kind of get an insight of their personality and understand who they are. And that's where it goes back to the trust factor. Because so many people have read her books worldwide, she's going to be much more trustworthy than someone like the Queen, who really we know very little about. And not only that, we can't relate with her, we can't resonate with her. So it's totally detached from us. How a story is told affects how it was received. I mean, like for me, for instance, I could be doing a much better job of this at not umming and ahhing or stopping or pausing. So delivery is really key. This is very common in obviously people like comedians. You know, because many jokes that if they were written down and you read off the piece of paper, they would get lost, because it is all about that delivery and all about that timing. Yeah, and obviously this talk would run dry if there was multiple pauses. There has been, but I mean like long pauses. Anyway, right. Also, a good storyteller gives you a promise that it's worth your time. You want to be invested in it. The storyteller wants to have you invested in it. So you want to make sure that it's either entertaining, educational, or emotional. Like, do I care about the person? Do I care about the thing? Do I care about the cause? And that's really important. I think a storyteller must know their audience. And lastly, on what makes a good storyteller is them telling you something authentic, honest, and true. I think because it's becoming more and more hard these days to decipher through the shit that's out there. So I think that it's very important for someone to give an authentic story of themselves. It's very important for someone to portray themselves of who they are. And I know this seems like very cliche and corny and something that's been said over and over again, but you kind of do need to be true to yourself, even when you're telling your stories, because they will resonate and connect with a lot more. I've got a friend of mine who, that's Ben Iron, and I mean, he's just a very open, honest person. There's nothing shy about him. And, you know, and he's had tea with the Prime Minister, he's had dinner with sheikhs from the UAE, and he's very much just tattoos on hands, cigarette in mouth, talks like that from South London. And he doesn't try and hide anything. And when he tells people about the things he's done, he's honest about them. He doesn't try and shy away the facts. He doesn't try and hide away the bad shit that's happened along the way, that he's done, the mistakes that he's made. And I think, and that's why he's there sitting having dinner with sheikhs in the UAE, because they appreciate that honesty too. It's about knowing the people's stories so you know that person. And if you know that person true, then you can take them as they are. Okay, so I've also realized that a lot of kind of journalism is much more effective if you have the kind of subject or the person narrate their own documentary, as it were. So with spraying, that's kind of what I do with spraying bricks. So this is about to come on now. This is D-Face in Malaga.
Malaga Museum are trying to evolve the museum roster to include urban art. So they organised a project which starts with mural painting in the streets of Malaga. We coordinated it so that Shepherd was also going to be painting them, so we're both there at the same time, and both crews get to hang out together and we always get on well, have a good time. Yeah, I don't love heights, first and foremostly. You know, people are like, oh, you must really like heights, you're always painting big buildings. And I'm like, no, I don't like being up that high, I'd much rather be on terra firma. This is the first time we've used a swing stage, which is essentially all 4 ropes were rigged onto one rope, so had we fallen, we'd have all come clattering into the centre, smashing into each other and probably bounced about 20 foot, which isn't what you want to know when you're painting that wall, but that is what it was like. The technique is a technique that I would use when I have to paint massive walls. The Sistine Chapel were painted in exactly the same way. People think they just kind of laid on their back and just sketched it out, and that's not how it was done at all. This has the nuances and the corrections that you can make as you're painting it. It's not completely calculated, and we weren't sure that it would work until we got there, and it worked really, really well. I knew Shepherd was going to come with something to do with peace, because that's kind of the flex he's on at the moment. His last couple of murals he's painted have been a peace-orientated move. He'd asked if he could see what I was painting so we could flex on each other's work. I didn't really want to do that because I quite liked the fact that I wasn't sure what he was going to paint and he wasn't sure what I was going to paint. I thought it would be quite cool to paint something that was the polar opposite to that, so something kind of aggressive but not really aggressive, in a kind of erring towards the size of war and destruction. Massive dead pilot. If they were going to work together, they were going to clash like mad. I thought it worked really well, and it was weird synergy in the two things. The panel at the top had text in it, his panel at the top had text in it, he had a triangle that met at the top, I had an arch, so there was like a weird sympathy to each wall, and they did kind of complement each other. They ran that project really well, I have to say, you know. The press on it was incredible, everything was prepared pretty much how you want it to be. And hopefully it works out for them as well. You know, I know the Spanish economy is pretty fucked, and it would be easy to criticise them for spending money on flying artists over to paint, but there was no fee involved. It was literally my time free and my people's time free. And I hope that it does something for the local people and the economy, and I think that's really important.
Cool. Hello. Is that on? Yeah. Cool. So, yeah, in that video there, you kind of see that D starts setting the plot. And then there's that human connection that he has with Shep. Then you get a bit of an insight, the fact that he's got a fear of heights, the fact that that swing stage was literally, we thought that it was kind of on the top of the building and then drilled kind of into the ground on top of the building. It's not. It's on rolly trolleys and about 4 or 5 like big old bricks. So if anybody removed one of them bricks, we were gone. It was kind of scary. It literally does not do it justice, that video, that height. But there was also the educational factor within that. So he talked about the pounce technique. And you know, that's kind of a technique that he's experimenting with now. So he's given that insight to sort of his skills and techniques, but also gave a bit of history there with the whole fact that Leonardo da Vinci painted the Sistine Chapel that way. And also had 1 million assistants as well, if anybody knew that. But he also narrates it. And to me, which is really key for a story, is the legitimacy of a story. And I think that legitimate, 15, 10. Okay, I'll try and work through fast. There's the political aspect of it as well. The fact that Spain's economy, I mean, especially at this point in time, because this is 2014, was fucked. And, you know, and there was that hope in him that he could, you know, inject some life, some money, some funding into that area. The relationship between Dee and Shep is actually kind of interesting as well, because they kind of came up in the ranks in street art together. Shep used to fly over here when Dee had his original studio, and they used to go out and paste up a lot and paint a lot. Maybe not with Shep so much painting, but it's kind of nice to see like how their environment obviously shapes sort of their vision and where they're going with their art. So obviously Dee's is a lot more about death and decay, and it's quite grey. And he lives in London. That's kind of fascinating to me. And then you've got Shep, who lives in LA, and it's all peace and love and happy and sunshine. And I kind of like the way that maybe their environment and where they are geographically is something that influences their story. Also, I'll be quick with this one, but I wanted to kind of show the idea of storytelling without words. So this is an artist called, it's actually a graffiti artist called Zombie. I'll show a brief bit of it because I think I'm running out of time. Like I say, quite amazing inspiration to me in terms of, you know, he's very honest and open with his mistakes he's made, and everything that he's done in life has led him to be the success he is now. And he takes that all on board, and he understands his own story, and I think that's quite important for people to understand their own story too. I'll keep moving swiftly on. The good, the bad, the ugly. So, I mean, the good, it's entertaining. So reading, listening, watching, creating your own stories in your head, it's just pure entertainment. It installs morals, like we said. It's a record of time, and thank God for things like, for platforms like Facebook, for YouTube, for Twitter, for Instagram, for Snapchat. I mean, Snapchat in particular, because that is the closest thing we're going to get to the Truman Show at the moment. And I mean, even the embarrassing shit that you put on there, even some of the photos that none of you like from the night out before, I'm glad they're there. You should be embarrassed. You should be ashamed. But what is happening is other people will see that and then learn from your mistakes, and that's what we need to do. So, I mean, if there's a picture of you, maybe with Peter with blood down his shirt and stuff like that on Facebook, I mean, that might spark some questions, maybe. Or, you know, you've got, you know, some bird in a kebab shop with garlic sauce on there, and they got their mascara everywhere, and you can see their knickers. Those shots are great, because that's taught generations after us to be like, man, I do not want to be that mess. You know, you have that sudden realization, like, man, she must have gone out on a night out and she got fucked up. Like, someone better make sure she gets home okay. It's these sort of things, you can start to question yourself. So I'm grateful for things like that. There's a lot of positive and negatives to take from social media, but I think that's one of the good things, that we do get this opportunity to open up and share our stories so that other people can learn. Stories create a greater understanding, which is kind of what I just touched on, but it also gives you affirmation of life having meaning. You know, there's this big question of life, but the answer is your story, is our story, is their story, is culture story, is a religious story, that is life. That, to me, is the meaning of life, is what your story is. So I think we should stop asking the question. Stories give an opportunity for other people and inspire other people to tell their story. That's part of the reason why I'm here today, is to, I mean, it's the first time I've ever spoken about storytelling as such, but it's kind of, I just want to be able to pass on something and inspire people. And surely that's what we want to do. In life, do we not want to just leave our mark on the world so that future generations can then benefit for the discoveries that we found? So we want to share these stories with them. It breaks down barriers. There's no one you can love after hearing a good story. I was in Kilimanjaro. I went to climb Kilimanjaro last year. I could go well into the story. I broke my foot and climbed it. Real hero story. And but couple of days before we went there, we went out into the town of Moshi, and we got really, really pissed on this local drink called Konyagi. And then you have, like, you know, a couple of the boys who are around, and, you know, they're always like, oh, money, money, I'll take you here, money, money, take you there. And there was this one particular kid who just pissed me off. I mean, he was on me, he was really rude about it. He was like, come on, man, give me some money, man, give me some money, I need some money, I need some money. And I was like, do you know what, piss off. And I was really rude to him. I said, look, just go on, piss off, I'm done with you, can you just leave? After he left, his friend came up, and I was like, look, what's his problem? Why has he got such an attitude? And he was like, man, if you were 3 years old and your parents left you on the street and they both died of AIDS and you were left with AIDS, would you be happy? And I was like, man. I was like, I know this guy's story now. I kind of feel a little bit guilty. Come back over. And I just have a drink, have some money, you know. But finding out his story, you know, you kind of have a sudden understanding of why he's like that. I mean, everybody's a product of their environment. There's nature and nurture. You know, nature's like natural things like you grow, you want to eat, you shit, you sleep. But nurture's things that you learn, things that we're taught, morals, understandings. And I think it's really key that you ask those questions. So yeah, good stories build relationships. There's also, so social media helps in this way as well, because stories, like I say, create a relationship with that person. I mean, you can connect with any celebrity now through Twitter, through Instagram. All these people that are loved, artists, for instance, you can connect with them, drop them a line on Instagram, ask them questions. And I find that really amazing that we're growing this network of people, and you're growing your own network of people. And all you've got to do is reach out. All you've got to do is reach out, ask them questions, find out about the story. So move to, stories also rationalize things and experiences as well. I think that's quite important. It's sort of kind of, you know, if I'd done that, you know, you'd be like, what the hell's he done that for? You know, but I'd done that just to make a point. So there you go. So we're going to move to the good, to the bad and the ugly. The worst thing is that we all. Sorry, I'm trying to. Okay. Can you give me 5? 5. It's cool. We all engage in daily fiction. That's a real big issue. So we all do. According to, this is where the research came from finance market analysis, Susan Duncan carried out research, and it shows that we lie 2 to 3 times an hour on average as people. We're constantly lying to ourselves, and that is the big issue. So we're kind of quick to blame others and not see our own faults. Like, Tina and Chuck, why the hell did you stick me on at 11:30, 12 in the morning when I could really have done with a late one? But really, that's my own fault for not even mentioning anything. I don't even know why. Anything good is always an internal reason. Anything bad, you treat like an external reason. So it's someone else's fault. And that is one of the bad issues of storytelling. Stories are inevitable but not predictable. And that's good and bad, because obviously that's quite entertaining sometimes when you hear a plot and then you don't notice a little twist, you're like, oh, bloody hell. But it also could be damaging as well. It could also be upsetting. And stories can be destructive. So gossip, for instance. Who likes to gossip? Anyone? No one's going to admit they like to gossip, to be fair. Doug, you like to gossip, right? You like to gossip. What's the best bit of gossip you've ever heard? No? A man who likes to gossip hasn't got a gossip story. Fair enough. But they destroy relationships. And this relates kind of into programs and fictions too, because I don't know if anybody's noticed it recently, it's been a real big point for me, and I want to mention it, is that it seems in series shows and programs these days, it's okay to cheat on your loved one. Has anyone else noticed that? Like, it's acceptable on both sides, both sexes. What are we teaching people? Like, they literally like, okay, I slept with so-and-so, but it's bad, you get out and then take you back again. It's like, what are they teaching people? So, and this goes on to kind of the media and how they kind of, unfortunately, they've had, over the last few centuries, have built a deep-rooted trust within us and manipulated us, in my eyes anyway. And then they create stereotypes. So there's drug users, there's stereotypes about people who take heroin, there's stereotypes of people who smoke weed. I mean, I smoke weed every day, but I maybe don't look like your typical stoner, or maybe I do. And that's the issue. Or, you know, at the moment, it's Muslims and ISIS. You know, anything outside of London, anybody outside of London seems to think that, you know, if you're a Muslim, you must have some sort of affiliation with ISIS. And there's these stories and these stereotypes that have been created by the media. And misinterpretation as well, I think, and sort of kind of risk of misunderstanding and only hearing a single side of a story is, it happens a lot. And it's not personally identified. So, I mean, I'll give you a couple of examples. I used like Shakespeare for one of them. Romeo and Juliet, star-crossed lovers. So people use that every now and then. Does anybody know what star-crossed lovers means? No? Well, apparently it was to be bought by fate. That's what the common, that's what is commonly known as. But it actually means actually fated to die because stars' fates has crossed you. So I mean, like, Romeo and Juliet was misinterpreted as a love story when really it was a tragedy. There's also John Keats. Oh, my bad. There's also John Keats' Ode to a Grecian Urn. Beauty is the truth, and truth is the beauty. I hear a lot of people use that quite, in terms of talking about honesty. And although he was supposed to be an idealist, John Keats, he didn't actually believe this, and it was actually just a sarcastic quip, because he fully believed that art should be something better than real life. I'm going to move on to spraying bricks. So this is spraying bricks. It's kind of, it documents street art and street art culture, but it's kind of, I wanted to tell stories. That's what I want to do. I wanted to tell these artist stories and portray them in the best light, because there's still some sort of misconceptions about a certain amount of artists. And that's another reason why, that's another stereotype, to be honest. I mean, most people think that graffiti artists are young black youths with a baseball cap on backwards, you know, and 9 times out of 10, they're middle-aged white men who are going out running around painting trains. So there's always a common misconception in any kind of genre or culture. So we move on to a quick example. Oh, is that the video? Is that the video? Oh, sorry, man.
Hello, my name is Ben Owen, kind of graffiti writer, street artist extraordinaire. So yeah, I got into graffiti when I was like 14, 15, a little kid, and graffiti came over from America. I couldn't break dance, so I got into graffiti. And yeah, I just got bitten by the bug and loved it, and I loved running around and tagging shit and getting chased and not getting caught, and I wasn't trying to be artistic. So yeah, just tagged stuff for years, like tagged all the London, and then got into trains and, you know, just like killed London Underground. And then kind of got more into kind of piecing and doing like nicer things on the side of trains. Spent a lot of time touring the country, and you just like spend a couple of days in each place, paint a train, rack some paint, move on to the next place. Yeah, and then just like banging out top to bottom whole cars with this good German fat cap, good coloured, good quality paint. I'm in the process of moving to San Francisco, where I've just got a studio out there, and the opportunity to repaint Auntie and the Auntie was like, yeah, that would certainly put a dent in my spray paint collection. I used to have like a proper job, so I left work and tried to become an artist. And then it got to the point where I'd been arrested like so many times, they were going to send me to prison. And this thing that didn't have a name started to kind of emerge. We're doing like illegal stuff in the street, and it, you know, it definitely wasn't anything like graffiti. That really interested me, and that looked like it would offer what graffiti promised but didn't deliver. And so I kind of like stopped doing graffiti and started doing this thing called street art, and yeah, and here I am today.
So yeah, ooh, I love that. That's one of my favourite videos. The reason being is because Ben was one of the artists that when I filmed, I didn't know who he was. I didn't know him on a personal level. Like, I kind of like to get to know people on a personal level. And I just randomly went down there while he was painting, took him a couple of T-shirts. We got talking. I think he kind of liked my story. I loved his story. And, you know, we've kind of clicked ever since. We've done so many different projects, and I've been in Miami with him, LA, San Francisco with him, in Amsterdam recently. And it's nice that we've just both shared stories together, and now I've created that connection. And that's what I really want to kind of take for that. Plus, I love this one because it kind of gives you a bit more of an insight and kind of like where the progression of street art actually kind of happened. And he was kind of on the forefront of it with Banksy at the time. So yeah, over the sort of past 2-3 years, I've been trying to develop Spraying Bricks into more of a network of creative people, more of a network of people, rather than just being a documentary sort of series. Because I think there's so many more elements to people's story, visually, written word, spoken word, to be heard than just sort of, you know, plain video kind of format. The reason I started it is because I wanted to portray artists in a different light. I want to give people kind of understanding. Like I say, I wanted to extinguish that usual stereotype of the young black youth going around with a spray can. I wanted to kind of break that and give people a bit more of understanding, and also then create a story behind the piece. And also because we all know that things get painted over, things get bombed out, that in this way it kind of lives on. And I kind of like that. I'm kind of creating a record and a database of great pieces of art that have been created. I'll quickly move on to my last kind of section because I'm getting this is the last, I promise, the last bit. So storytelling, this is what I'm kind of building up to. There's always an end goal with storytelling. So it's usually storytelling to create social change. This is a quote from Lister, who was recently hailed for beautifying Queensland, being one of their national treasures, and then was arrested and charged with, what was he charged with exactly? Charged with 1 count of willful damage, and he was found guilty and sentenced to 5 hours community service. I know not much, but I kind of find it amazing and a contradiction of that. The local government can praise him for bringing tourism, to bringing money, to kind of beautifying, literally that's the words they use, beautifying Queensland, but then at the same time condemn him for it? It's ridiculous. But through his story, and through the fact that he did go through this, and the fact that he's telling everybody about this, hopefully then other people can avoid that. And that's not just other artists. I'm talking about other local governments, other local cities. So could take that on board and be like, well, hang on a minute, that's a bit backwards. And that kind of, I'm going to kind of swiftly move on. So there's a lot of problems in the world, and what the issue is, like, I mean, for instance, the big issues at the moment, especially for me, is climate change, mental health, drugs, and the question of public space. And the reason these are all issues is because they're just swept under the carpet and not spoken about. That is the bottom line. These are people just too scared to have these conversations about these topics. I'll quickly move. Okay, and this then leads me on to Illegal, which is another initiative that we have. And Illegal is a street magazine, very kind of similar to The Big Issue, but there's no advertisements and there's general kind of content in it. And what we do is we give this to drug users, mainly drug users and the homeless, to kind of create an alternative source of revenue for them, rather than going out there selling their bodies or stealing. And it's another way for them to buy their drugs. And we're quite honest with that, because 9 times out of 10, the people that sell The Big Issue are buying drugs with that money anyway. So the contents inside is unbiased stories. So it's people's experiences on drugs. And what it is just to open up that conversation about drugs, get people talking about it, get people to question it, and have a realization of it. You know, I can't understand that it's there and it's definitely not going to go away. People like to get off their nut. So I played this quick video from Joe. Oh, is that going to play? This is one of our vendors, Joe, and she's based in Shoreditch. And she's not the most articulate person in the world. I mean, neither am I. but she kind of says how it's benefited her and how she thinks the actual concept itself is a positive one.
And I know, like, people say, oh, well, drug users are going to sell it or whatever, but as I said, like, wouldn't you rather them sell you something than rob you or sell themselves or, you know, make harm to themselves or others in any way? And yeah, I'd rather that any day, you know? Like, even people that I've spoke to that are ex-addicts, they think it's a brilliant idea. Like, there was a guy in Liverpool Street and I was doing an interview with LBC at the time with them, and he was like, he was just so excited about this magazine. He just was like, if that was around, like, it would have helped him out at the time as well. And he's like, he knows friends that are still addicts now that don't know what they're doing with it. And yeah, it's just information that people need. And if it ain't out there, then who else is going to do it? No one's.
So that was Joe. I wanted to show you that again, going back to some of the points that I've already mentioned throughout this talk, is giving that legitimacy, giving that authentic feel to it, because you know this is Joe. There's no bars hold with her. She was a heroin addict. She suffered for years, lost both her kids, but she even said it herself. She had no idea what heroin was when she first took heroin. She had no idea. She was just like, oh, this is something, and then was given it by someone, and then that's it, and instantly hooked. So she had no idea she was taking heroin for ages. Now, I mean, she sold one of the magazines last year for £300. I think people thought they were kind of like a collector's item and we were only doing one edition, but we're actually not. But yeah, she now has a flat. She sees her kids twice a week as well, and she's got kind of her life back on track. But the whole idea was that with Illegal is exactly that, is to share stories and to break down barriers and eradicate stereotypes. I actually know plenty of functioning heroin addicts. I know plenty of functioning heroin addicts who are very successful people. I mean, me myself as well, there's always that misconception with smoking weed that you sit on your ass and do sod all day. I mean, I managed to get up of bed every day and work till sort of 2, 3 morning the next day working on 3 different projects. I'm very happy with what I do. I find it as a tool, a creative tool, and I just want other people to realise that and understand that and kind of get a feel for it, just be open. I mean, you can use sex education as a very, very good tool. We started talking about sex education more and more in schools in our sort of 20 years. And since then, sexually transmitted disease have decreased by nearly 60%, and teenage pregnancies has nearly halved over the last 10 years. And that's because we're open about it, we're talking about it, we're having a conversation. There's no one scared about not talking about it. We're back in the kind of 70s and early 80s, you'd kind of shy away from it. It would be prudish. You wouldn't talk about it. So I want to talk about it to then eradicate you would start then eradicating addiction and dependency. You would start resolving issues like crime as well. And then you can even take one step further and then start obviously, oh, have I just turned it off? There we go. You start kind of legalizing it, so then you start creating revenue and then tax money off of that, which then can be put into healthcare and education. I ran for Parliament last year in Lambeth, and I had a hustings event, and we were talking about, everybody was asked a question about cuts. What are you going to do when they make these cuts? I didn't have an answer for the cuts, because, well, I did. My answer to that question was, I wouldn't be standing here talking about cuts if you let me have my way. Because at the end of the day, you look at things like Denver, who get $50 million in tax a month, that they then pump back into healthcare and into education. That's insane. They only have 6.4 million people. There's 9 million people in London. Think how much money we could be making a month that they can be put on different things. So, and then I wanted to try and say about social change in art. Oh, this is actually another video for, I'll skip that one. Now, everybody knows him. And there's no point me talking about his work and what he does. You all know him. But I think this quote in particular is very key. You know, you've got to do something. You've got to do something. You've got to say something. You can't just sit on your ass and do nothing. If you want, surely the end goal is to leave your mark on this world and leave some sort of hope for future generations. And I think that's key, and I think everybody needs to do that. And there's this old Indian proverb, Native American proverb: those who tell stories rule the world. I actually really like the idea of those who tell the story can change the world. And that's my talk. I hope you're all inspired to share your story. Please come and talk. I've also got some copies of the magazine.